Hi, I'm Gail.
And hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast. Please visit womenover70.com, join Aging Reimagined Circle. One of the benefits of membership is free participation in our online monthly programs, and plan to attend our first live symposium in LaGrange Park, Illinois, on October 19th, 2024. We will celebrate 5 years, 300 episodes, and so much more. Will you be among the 150 attendees? See womenover70.com for information.
And today we're happy to welcome to our studio Ruth Schimel, PhD. She's 84. She's also an active participant in Women's Connection.org, formerly the Transition Network. Women Over 70 thanks Ronnie Buckley, chair of the Coast to Coast chapter, for introducing Ruth to us. Ruth launched her career in life management consulting practice in 1983 with an original process that encourages self-sufficiency. She guides clients in appreciating their complexity and building on their strengths for personal and professional success as they define it. To support this, Ruth wrote over 220 digestible short guides for her clients, sharing and publishing. Based on an original doctoral research, Ruth published Choose Courage, Step into the Life You Want, using primarily psychology and philosophy, poetry, photos, and humor. She describes how almost anyone can activate their capacity for courage as a process of becoming. An additional dimension to her work, described in the recent update to her website, ruthschimel.com, is a focus on making later life vital. There's so much more to say about Ruth. She's a prolific author and writer, has submitted 70 articles or more to the online publisher For Your Tango, which focuses on love, relationships, emotional wellness, and self-empowerment. She was a diplomat for 20 years, and in 1998, she founded the Schimel Lode Foundation.
No, it's just a lode, not foundation.
Oh, no foundation. She founded the Schimel Lode with her mother in honor of her parents. It encourages innovation and collaboration for the public good in the Washington, D.C. area. And we'll let you know later how to reach that. So, Ruth, welcome.
Thank you.
Over 70, Aging Reimagined. We are glad that you're here with us today. And I thought a good place to start would be by looking back. So what were the early years that influenced you to pursue career in life management and start your own consulting practice?
Well, I actually was very, very lucky to participate in the Cornell program on industrial and labor relations. And it struck me how crucial work is to meaning in life and sanity, in fact, because as you know, Freud said it's work and love, isn't it? So work is a big part of what I'm looking for. Not that I'm a big fan of Freud, actually, but it gives us some credibility, right?
Yeah.
So the meaning of work became very important to me. And then I noticed how few people really enjoyed their work and what they were doing. And I noticed also with my parents that they went on various excursions away from what their essence was, what their center was. I won't go into details on that, but I think it's very sad to see how few people really find work that's a really good match for them. And I've noticed that over and over again. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested also in how people can transcend the narrow labels we plant on them. Mm-hmm. And as you think about work more holistically and in terms of the match and the fit, that's that you can always make it work well. I think that we can start out a little bit better, but the chances of doing that are not always that great given the way education and work are designed.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you get into opening your own practice and studying more about career life management?
Well, actually, I got institutionalized a few times.
Okay.
As a joke. I worked in organizations. I was in the Foreign Service, and also I was at the Labor Department on loan. And it became very apparent to me that organizations really limit people, or we allow them to limit us. And I had a detour in the Foreign Service myself, which I won't go into, but that involved love. So just to give you a little soupçon of curiosity there. But the idea of becoming independent became very appealing to me when I saw what happened once you were subsumed in institutions.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you when you started your own business?
Well, I kind of snuck into it. It was incremental. It wasn't overnight. So it wasn't a particular age, but it's closer to my 30s.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Well, what did you mean? I'd love to hear more about it when you said that people cannot transcend the labels that are put on them.
Well, it's rather difficult because we have labels in education, we have majors, there are labels in jobs, and it's not that they can't transcend it, it's just that everybody seems to be more comfortable with a label. And we were kind of at a loss for how to describe what we really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not that neat.
Is that part of what you help them with?
Yes. I help them hear their true selves.
Yeah, right. And also courage, right? You talk a lot about courage.
That's right. And it's all tied in together.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, basically, I started working on my dissertation. It took me about 10 years to get serious and to get down and actually write the darn thing. And so I'm going to amuse you a little bit. I got the idea for writing the dissertation about courage through a vision. I tend to go in directions where my curiosity takes me. And as I was procrastinating about writing the dissertation, I went to a meeting on organizational development. And everybody was boasting all over the place about how they knew how organizations worked and how to improve them. And I got a little slash. Actually, it was an image of a movie marquee with the red letters on it that spelled courage with, Kliegleist, the way movie marquees are.
Yeah.
It said courage. And I got up and I did a little speech. God knows what I said. But I said one of the reasons why we don't really improve the way organizations work is because people lack courage. And then I sat down and next to the head of the doctoral program I was sitting next to, and I said, that's what I want to do my dissertation on, not knowing what it was going to get me into. But it was a vision, actually.
Right. Interesting. Yes.
How did you approach that your research then?
I mushed around a lot. And I went to the library and, the stacks and everything, and I did a lot of reading because I'm very expansive in the way I look at things. I don't go overly to one particular, one idea. And so I read a lot of philosophy and psychology, and I started to integrate a lot of the ideas. I'm really proud of the dissertation because it's very user-friendly. It's not at all suffering from what I call academia.
Good.
Yeah. And so you said courage is a process of becoming, and it involves going through discomfort, fear, anxiety, and suffering, and taking wholehearted, responsible action.
Yeah. Or not and necessarily, it could be or suffering. But basically what happens is people talk about courage all the time, right? You hear them using the word, but they don't say what it is actually and how to get it. So my idea was to make it accessible to individuals. And it's not a process. It's not an act, because if it's an act, it comes and goes. Mm-hmm. And if it's a characteristic, you either have it or you don't have it. So I came up with this one sentence through the dissertation that is a process of becoming that involves a willingness to realize your true capacities by going through discomfort, fear, anxiety, or suffering and taking wholehearted responsible action. Mm-hmm. And most of the people who hear that say that it speaks to them, that it's accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe you should have been a therapist.
Well, actually, I thought about it, but I don't like the process of therapy. It's just too much power. The power is in one person, and I like to work collaboratively with my clients, and basically give them the wherewithal and the experience so that they don't need me anymore. And therapy just spins out way too much from my perspective.
Can you give?
I've been in therapy myself for a short period of time, and I even tried cognitive behavioral therapy for something else. And so I'm being disdainful based on experience, not standing outside and being picky.
Well, I would like to stay on this subject, but there's so much more to talk with you about. And and climate activism, your climate activism is one. Do you want to tell us how you got into this action group?
Well, that's relatively new. Basically, I'm part of a group at my synagogue that is focusing on getting people involved with climate activism, and I feel very strongly about it. Not that we can, at this late stage, that we individuals can do that much about it, but if we don't start working in tandem and collaboratively, at some point, we might as well give up entirely. Unfortunately, it's just taking too much time. It's taken decades for people to start to take it seriously. And we don't have that much power. But I think that we can do a lot of small and meaningful things that make a difference. And when you do it collaboratively in a community and you share information, unfortunately, it's overwhelming at this point because everybody's waking up.
That's true. Very true.
But it's also a community building process. And so I feel very grateful for the group of people I'm working with. We have about 30 people in the group. We just did a program with 10 and 13-year-olds, and I use storytelling. Because I thought that they would take that, and tell them something about how to tell stories about their experiences with climate change to wake up people for a conversation.
Nice.
As opposed to just spewing forth a lot of facts, which we tend to do, which it bores people, and they sort of tune out, I think.
Do you have a personal story about that you can share
About climate change?
about climate?
Well, I can't really call it climate change because it was way before the climate change.
Activism.
but I was in a flood and isolated for 4 days. And so I have an experience of what happens when water takes over.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, we had a house in Upper New York State, and the lake above we had a brook in front of it, and the lake above us, the bridge, the dam broke. And so we were all flooded and isolated from the main road for about 4 days. And water came through one part of the house and out the other part of the house.
Oh.
And if my father hadn't fixed the foundation, almost right before that happened, we might have floated away. So it was a real experience, but it wasn't climate change per se.
But we know that there's more and more of that happening.
Exactly.
When you and I spoke, you talked about arting.
It's a new word we made up.
Yeah, arting. I love that. Art as conversation.
You want to know more about that?
Definitely.
Well, during the pandemic, a very close friend of mine, and she also a colleague, and I were who were interested in art. We decided to go shopping at museums and to discuss art, and we do it every week for about an hour. And we did it for quite a while, as you can imagine. And we ran out of museums. So Shari, who's my collaborator on this, suggested that we do mashups, where we juxtapose paintings so that we can see things we wouldn't see ordinarily if we were just looking at something on the wall at a museum. We get different insights and different applications in terms of personal reactions and associations. And so then I read poetry, so Shari suggested that we include poetry in it. So we're just finishing the blog right now. And I'm excited about it because I think it's a very friendly and viable way for people to learn about art and get excited about art and also improve their communication with one another and their insights.
Mm. And
it's not expert driven because we're not experts.
Mm-hmm.
So is your blog about the kind of conversations you have about the art, your experiences of it?
It also shows people how to do it.
Oh, okay.
And it gives them examples of how to juxtapose the mashups and that kind of thing. So it's a very how-to kind of blog. It's just we just went live on it. It's not completely finished, but it's online.
And it's artingconversations.com. Yeah. Yeah. I looked at it. It looks very interesting. I'm definitely
thank you.
Going back.
But you haven't even seen the juxtapositions of the art yet. That's the really fun part of it.
You're right. That was not there.
Yeah, and we're going to record some of our conversations so that people have an idea of what they can talk about. Because it varies all the way from talking about the associations that we have and the stream of consciousness that occurs, as well as insights about the art itself. Mm-hmm. So it's very personalized, but it's also user-friendly.
This could replace book clubs.
Maybe. Well, people have a new phenomenon. Thank you for the idea.
Yes. And you like to talk about the playful and accidental parts of life. Have you experienced a lot of that?
Oh, yeah. In fact, as you just implied, a lot of the people you work with and discuss these things with have a similar experience. Getting to Cornell was an accident. One of our neighbors who knew me pretty well, who worked for the Social Security Administration when I was, when you're in high school and you don't know what you want to do, where you want to go. And he suggested Cornell Industrial Labor Relations, which I had never heard of and nobody ever talked about. And I had been and my high school was the Bronx High School of Science. So the people there, I thought I wanted to be an architect or a biochemist. But my math was so stinky, I never got there. So, anyway, he suggested ILR. It was a perfect fit for me because it was interdisciplinary. And actually, Cornell is a kind of a family college. I went there when I was 2 years old, actually.
Yes.
I was very precocious.
Apparently.
My father went for his master's degree there. And so we all went up there in the summer for 2 summers. And also, two of my cousins had gone there. So it's a great university. But this is a New York State school for industrial and labor relations, and it's a very fine interdisciplinary school.
Yeah, wonderful.
And it was a very natural place for me. Like labor union organizers, and all kinds of people who have social consciousness were there.
And how else has play, accidental happenings been?
Well, I told you about the vision I had for my dissertation, right?
Yes.
I think that's kind of accidental.
Sure. I'm trying to think of what other experiences. Well, actually, when Shari and I came up with this idea for arting, that was just very spontaneous. It was just, it evolved. Depending on the fact that we're very trusting of one another and open with one another. And I think that leads to very creative possibilities for a lot of people. So right. Yeah. Yeah. And so how are you thinking about your own aging? Are you living independently?
Oh, yes. Yes. And I intend to be that way as long as I possibly can. As my mother used to say, she was only interested in having her marbles and mobility, which I think was a great way.
Marbles and mobility?
She called it her M&Ms.
I gotta write that down. Marbles and mobility.
Mobility, right. So I live alone. I'm not married. And but I have a lot of very, very good friends, and I have a family by choice. I have 2 sisters and a brother by choice. And I live in a situation that's very self-sufficient, and we have a local village Do you know about the villages?
Yes, we do know about the villages. We have one here in Chicago. Village.
And I have a lot of fun with it with the young women. They are amazing. Catherine's shaking her head. Do you have experience with it too, Catherine?
Yes, I live on the west side of Chicago, and yes, we have something similar.
But these young women are really interesting. In fact, to be honest, they're more interesting than a lot of my peers, and we have very interesting conversations. They're very socially committed, and they have all kinds of great insights. And they go through university in very non-traditional, independent, creative ways.
And you're part of the now called the Women's Connection.
Yes.
So tell us about your involvement with that group.
We've done. I'm a member of both the DC chapter and the Coast to Coast, and we have a lot of fun. We've done the Coast to Coast chapter, especially. We did a program on intergenerational collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I did a program on storytelling, and we do a lot of SIGs, so we get to know one another, because that's the important thing. It's not just a matter of going to programs; it's a matter of really developing relationships, I think, and that requires commitment and time and patience and playfulness and openness.
Is everything that you do with them online?
I don't know. I don't know if they recorded the storytelling. I don't know what's happening we're starting another intergenerational program in September. We're working on the follow-up for that. So there'll be one coming in September on intergeneration.
Uh-huh.
So doing a plug for that, okay?
Yes, for sure. And how does Village, what is the village called where you are? Washington?
Foggy Bottom.
You see? How does...
Foggy Bottom?
Yeah, that's where it is. Look, that's
Foggy Bottom. Okay. How does Village Foggy Bottom, what does it do for you?
Oh, well, it provides transportation and it provides all kinds of programs. In fact, I've done 2 art exhibits there. I did a series of work related to the arting thing that I just explained to you, and a series of pieces that I did, a piece of art pieces. So one year I did a presentation. We all had our art exhibit, and then this year did a presentation on the arting idea, which seemed to attract a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the opportunities to express yourself as well as to take advantage of services.
Yeah, that's terrific. Uh-huh.
And they have also very interesting programs.
Is this part of, Gail mentioned in the introduction about your update to your website, your focus on making later life vital?
Yes, exactly.
Is this what you're describing?
What you mean?
Making your life vital?
No, it's actually what I use a lot of my materials and approach to things about my whole career in life management consulting practice. That's what that's related to in terms of making later life vital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, my first exhibit was about collages, because I'm not a great. In fact, I did a really cute collage called Belly Button Blues about how to avoid over focusing on your belly button. Because you know what happens when you over focus on your belly button. What happens? You see a lot of fuzz.
That's terrific. Yeah.
What are some of the main messages that you have for making later life vital?
Being honest with yourself, dealing with your fears, getting the assistance that you need, getting really knowledgeable about our so-called healthcare system. I call it the medical process. It's not a healthcare system.
Not a system.
It's not a system, and it's not healthcare. I have a minor in gerontology for my PhD. That was one way that I prepared myself for it. And I think that the other thing is to have really good support systems and people who care about you, who you care about, and having a good sense of humor and not overly focusing on what I call the maintenance matters. I'll tell you a very quick story. I had a lot of heart symptoms for maybe 10 years, and the cardiologist couldn't find out what to do with it. They couldn't find out the reasons for it. And this fall, I had another series of tests with nuclear and all that stuff, and they couldn't find anything. And there were symptoms, but couldn't find the reason for it because, they're overly focused on their specialties. So one of my friends were going through sleep apnea tests, and I said to myself, could this be sleep apnea? And I took the test, and I had advanced sleep apnea. So for 10 years, we kept the so-called healthcare system in money with all this with all this cardiologist tests, when basically it was something entirely different. That's why I'm against oversimplifying things and overlabeling things.
Oh, interesting. But
that really means that you have to be in charge. You have to take the initiative. You can't be passive about all this stuff. It doesn't mean you'll be right. It just means that you'll ask better questions. Maybe.
Yeah. Right. That's be able to sort through.
And also be picky. Also be picky about your specialists and the people who you work with, and fire the ones who you can't trust.
Yeah. So true. Very true. Yeah. Well, Ruth, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we close?
Well, thank you for the invitation, but even better was the conversation we just had. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And listeners, because of your loyalty, our numbers continue to grow. Still, we would like to see more of you at our monthly online programs. Join Aging Reimagined's circle and participate for no charge. And make your voice be heard and help us change the conversation about women aging. We hope to see you in October.
Are you going to send me information about how to do that? So to join in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you for your good work. I truly appreciate your work on this.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.